Our last fraction video is going to be on adding and subtracting fractions that have different denominators, so they don't have the same one to start off with. And hopefully you remember that in order to add and subtract fractions together, they must have that common denominator. So what you're going to have to do first is turn all of those denominators the same. Okay, so they have to have those common denominators. So for the first one there, we have 3/5 plus 1/3. If I look at my denominators, I have a 5 and I have a 3. So we need to think about the least common multiple that both of them can go into. And if you can't come up with the least, then you just need a common multiple that they share together. So I know that 5 and 3 both can go into 15. So I'm going to rewrite each of my fractions as something out of 15ths. So in this first one here, 3/5 is how many 15ths? Well, I go from 5 to 15, that's multiplied by 3. Whatever I do to the bottom, I have to do to the top. So that's going to give me 9/15ths up top there. And on the bottom here, going to multiply by 5. Same thing to the top. So that's going to give me 5. And now I'm going to add those together. And I'm going to rewrite my problem just so I can see it. So 9/15ths plus 5/15ths. 9 plus 5 is 14/15ths. And your last step's always, can you simplify? For this one, this is simplified as far down as it can go already. So that would just be your answer. Next one there, 1/6 plus 3/4. Common denominator there could be 12, could be 24. It's up to you. Let's go with 12 here. 6 times 2 is 12, so 1 times 2 is 2. 4 times 3 is 12, so 3 times 3 is 9. Add those together, 2/12 plus 9/12 is 11/12. And that's already simplified as far as it can go, so that would be your answer. Now, just like we did when we were adding and subtracting fractions with common denominators, you have to keep in mind your integer rules still. So even though we're not just doing like -4 plus 5, you still have to know all those things when we apply it to a new skill. So -5/6 plus 1/8. Well, at first they have to have those common denominators. For these, we're going to say their common denominator is 24. So 6 times 4 is going to be -5 times 4, which is -20. Got to keep in mind those integers. 8 times 3 is 24, so 1 times 3 is 3. So now I have -20 24ths plus 3 24ths. Okay, we know that our denominator is going to stay the same. We know that's going to stay 24. Up top, I have -20 plus 3. So I need you to think -20 plus 3 is going to be -17. That is already simplified as far as it can go. So that then is your answer. Let's keep going with those. We'll do another adding one here. I have -3/10 plus -5 3/4. Okay, let's go ahead and popcorn the second fraction so that we're just looking at fractions or improper fractions right now, no mixed numbers. So that's going to be 4 times 5 is 20, so -20 3/4. -3/10. All right, common denominator between the two of those is going to end up being 20. And notice I still write all of this out because the hardest part with these kinds of ones is just your organization. So 10 times 2 is 20, so -3 times 2 is -6. So I'm going to have -6 20ths plus -20 3/4. Well, 4 times 5 is 20, so 23 times 5 is going to be 115. Oh, and a negative, because that's negative there. My common denominator is just going to stay the same. It's going to be that 20 there. Now I have -6 plus negative 115. Well, they're both already negative, so I'm just going to add them together and keep it a negative. So that's going to end up being negative 121 20ths. Now I have to figure out how many whole times can 20 go into 121. It can go in 6 whole times. 6 times 20 is 120, so I'm going to have 1/20th left over, and hope you're seeing what is it that I forgot. This negative sign here has to be brought over, so this whole thing is a negative. That's a quick check when you're going through to make sure that, did I do it correctly? Is my answer negative? Because I'm adding a negative plus a negative. So don't confuse those with your multiplication and division rules. All right, let's do another adding, and then we'll move on to some subtracting ones. 3 3/4 plus 5/12. Let's go ahead and popcorn that. 4/12, 15/4 plus 5/12. Well, I know my common denominator can be 12ths, and so that second one can just stay the same. 4 times 3 is 12. 15 times 3 is 45. So now I'm going to take 45/12 plus 5/12 is going to be 50/12. How many whole times can 12 go into 50 without going over? 4. 12 times 4 is 48. I have 2 left over 12, but not done yet, because that can be simplified. I can divide 2 and 12 by 2, so that's going to simplify to 4 1/6. Now for subtraction, there's really not going to be anything that's different. It's all going to pretty much be the same steps. Got to find that common denominator, and then just keep in mind my integer rules. So 3/8 minus 3/4. Well, I know eighths can be my common denominator, so I just need to change the second one. So it's going to be 3/8 minus some other amount of eighths. So 3/4 is how many eighths? Well, times 2 times 2, that's going to be 6. So 3/8 minus 6/8. Okay, that denominator stays the same. 3 minus 6, that's going to be negative 3. That's simplified as far down. That's going to be my answer. Now I have two mixed numbers, 9 3/5 minus 7 2/3. Let's go ahead and popcorn each of these. You don't want to be caught just doing those whole numbers in case one's bigger. So that's going to be 48/5 minus 23/3. Common denominator there is going to be, looks like 15 again. So I'm going to multiply 48 times 3. 144. And I have 23/3. Going to multiply 23 times 5. We already did that one to be 115. And now we're subtracting. So 144 minus 115 is going to be what we're going to type in to get 29/15. How many whole times can that go in there? Well, one whole time with 14 left over out of 15ths. So see, if you would have done 9 minus 7, you would have ended up with a 2 at the end, but we know it's going to be less than that here. A couple more before you're going to try these on your own. 7 1/6 minus 6 5/8. Let's popcorn both of those. So that's 43/6 minus 53/8. Okay. Common denominator, let's do 24. So 53 times 3 is going to be 159. 43 times 4 is going to be 172. And we are subtracting those. So 172 minus 159, 13. And I know my common denominator is going to be 24. So these aren't that difficult. It's just time consuming, and you need to make sure that you're keeping in mind all of those little details along the way and not losing track of any numbers. So next one there, keeping in mind my integer rules again. 5 1/3 minus negative 4 5/9. Well, if you minus a negative, remember we're going to keep, change, change. So that's the same as 5 1/3 plus 4 5/9. Let's go ahead and for this one we won't popcorn, we'll just add the whole numbers and then add the fractions if that's the way that you're used to doing these. So 5 plus 4 is going to be 9 wholes. Now I have 1/3 plus 5/9. Well, my common denominator there is going to be 9ths, so I need to change how many thirds, or again, how many 1/3 is going to give me something out of 9. So 3 times 3, so times 3, so 3 9ths plus 5 9ths is 8 9ths. That's already simplified, so I'll just attach that to the back there, 9 and 8 9ths. Last one, 3 3/4 plus 5/14. If we want to do this one like we did the last one, we'll keep that whole number to the side here. So I have 3/4 plus 5/14. Common denominator there is going to be 28. Fourteen times 2 is 28, so that's going to make that 10 times 7. That's going to be 21. So I'm going to have 21 28ths plus 10 28ths, which is going to give me 31 28ths, which is equal to 1 and 3 28ths. And I'm going to need to combine that with the 3. So total I'm going to have 4 and 3 28ths. And that's already simplified. All right, these next ones are going to be yours to try. So you can go ahead and pause the video and then play back through, make sure that you're doing them correctly. Let's start with number 1 here. 1/15 plus 3/5. We're going to change that 3/5 to something out of 15. Well, that's times 3 times 2, that's going to be 9. 1 plus 9 is 10/15. Divide both those by 5 to end up getting 2/3 as your answer. Number 2 there, 7/8 plus negative 2/7. All right, common denominator, let's do 56. 7 times 8 is 56. That's going to be times 7, so got to do the same thing here. That's 49. This is times 8, same thing up top. That's going to be negative 16. So my denominator is going to be 56, and what's 49 minus 16? That's what we need to be thinking about. That's going to be 33. And that can't be simplified any further, so that's just going to be your answer. Going to number 3, common denominator between 4 and 9. Well, that's probably going to be 36. So something out of 36. That's going to be times 9, so negative 9. Negative 1 times 9 is negative 9. Times 4 times negative 7 is going to be 28 there. So negative 9 minus 28 is my new problem. And that's all going to be over 36. Well, if I keep my first here, change the sign, change the number. So that's negative 9 plus negative 28. So I'm going to end up adding those together to get negative 37. All right, now I can simplify. 36 can go into 37 one whole time, and it's negative, remember, with 1 left over. So there is my answer. Number 4, let's popcorn both of those. That's going to be negative 4/3 minus 37. Common denominator is going to be 21. That's going to be times 3. That's going to be 90. This is going to be times 7, negative 28. So negative 28 minus 90. Remember, if I keep my first, change the sign, change the value of the number, all over 21. So 28 plus 90 is going to give me 118, and it's negative. How many whole times can 21 go in there? 5 whole times. 21 times 5 is 105. So that's going to be 13 left